Welcome to the Chris McKee Podcast. I'm Chris McKee. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Got a couple great interviews lined up for you guys today. The first interview you're going to listen to is with Stephen F. Austin University head coach Kyle Keller. Kyle's entering his second year as the head coach of the Lumberjacks, and we had a pretty in-depth conversation where he breaks down his team completely, everything that's going on in the Southland, and just anything that's on his mind about basketball. And the second interview you're going to hear is with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, one of the more controversial figures in all of college football. He's in his first year at head coach down at Florida Atlantic, and he's got them playing really well. They're 7-3 right now, and they're 6-0 and in first place in Conference USA. I spoke to Lane just before the start of the season, and I was really surprised talking to him. He's a really easygoing dude, and you hear all these things about him in the media, and I think he is a little bit misunderstood. And when you sit and listen to the interview, maybe you'll come away with the same sort of thought of him. He's very relaxed, one of the more enjoyable coaches I've had the pleasure of speaking with. But first, up on this episode, we're going to talk to Kyle Keller. I've spoken to Kyle a few times. This was for an article I wrote for Mid-Major Madness, so check that out. It's one of the SB Nation sites. I read a lot about college basketball. I've interviewed over 50 or 60 Division I head coaches over the past year, and I decided to finally put this out there for you guys to listen to as well. Last year was Kyle's first season as the head coach at Stephen F. Austin, who, like I mentioned earlier, they've made it to 3 straight NCAA tournaments, but only went 18-15 last year, and the New Orleans Privateers ended up winning the Southland, taking their spot and entered the tournament. So I started off talking to Kyle a little bit about that. But Kyle, this guy, one of my favorite coaches to speak with. Kyle's been an assistant at some of the biggest programs in the United States, Texas A&M, Kansas, Oklahoma State, all for about 20 years. And he finally took the Stephen F. Austin job last year. He's now entering his second season. He's doing a really good job. He's really confident in his team this year and where they're going to go. So we talked for about 20, 25 minutes. So get settled in. You're going to enjoy this convo. Now, at the end of it, he kind of says, hey, off the record. So I sort of stopped the recording after about 20 minutes, and he starts telling me a few things. But the gist of it is he's really confident in his team. So take a listen. I think you're going to enjoy this. And if you're out there in Twitter world, drop me a line on Twitter at Mr. McKee. Let me know what you think of the podcast, as well as my previous episode that is online. Just Google Chris McKee Podcast. The last episode had Kermit Davis, head coach at Middle Tennessee, as well as Sean Menard, who is your director of the movie called The Carter Effect, Vince Carter documentary that should be in theaters soon. But alas, college basketball season is underway. The Stephen F. Austin University Lumberjacks are 1-0 in this early season. And here's my conversation with their head coach, Kyle Keller. I hope you enjoy. After a run of 3 straight tournaments for SFA, how tough was it to be at home watching New Orleans play in the NCAA tournament?
We rooted for New Orleans, and they had a great story, and, we rooted for our league, and obviously, selfishly, we wanted to be in it, but if we couldn't, I thought it was great that they could represent our league, and they could represent their city for all the things that they've gone through and reviving, their program, and Coach Schlesinger does a great job. Obviously, I don't root for one school over the other in our league, but I've known Mark a long time, and he does a fantastic job and does it the right way, and I was really happy for him. I heard for our players and our fans, obviously. We wanted to go, but if we couldn't, I thought it was great for them and their city and, what they've accomplished. But, it was painful, and we didn't reach our ultimate goal for sure.
Before the start of last season, you told me you knew it was going to be difficult to continue that run of success that SFA has had, going like 89-13, and you went 18-15. What was the first thing after the season that you felt needed to be addressed on the court moving into this year?
Well, I thought we did that in recruiting. I thought that I thought we did it last fall. What we, our roster and the things that obviously are out of your control. And going into the year, I thought we had, replacing all the guys that we'd lost in the previous team, and what we were able to pieces we were able to put in place going into the year. I had really high expectations, and our program has high expectations, and those will never change. But some things you can't control.
You'd been an assistant for many years with some of the biggest programs in basketball, and last year was your first year as a head coach in many years. What did you learn about yourself during last year as a coach? Maybe some of the things you felt you did well, and perhaps maybe some of the things you need to adjust moving into this year.
Well, I learned that all those suggestions that I thought were right weren't right. Suggestions are always real easy, but decisions come with repercussions. And I don't question anything that we did. When we were 6-9 and 1-2 and had a really aggressive non-conference schedule and went on the road a bunch and because of my belief in not only our program but our players, probably wasn't the right time to do it with the one thing you can't coach, which is inexperience. And probably wasn't the smartest thing to do for a bunch of young guys. And so, I've taken kind of a different approach this year. We've got the most home games in 30 years. And we have a chance to I think if we can take advantage of the second best home court record in college basketball in the last 5 years, to really get off to a good start and build some confidence, and which is so important in college basketball. And we can have a really, really successful season for our program. But I think the biggest thing I learned is I was worn out by the time I got to January, and rest and taking care of my body and staying up late, and I've lost about 30 pounds since the season was over with. I've been staying up late, eating, watching, not sleeping, and I just looked at myself and I was just it was disgusting, and I don't think I could make the best decision for my team because of that. And I think just take better care of myself and delegate more. As much as anything else, I've got a great staff, and I probably tried to do too much on my own.
So what are you doing as far as workouts and stuff? You mentioned you lost 30 pounds. What's the secret? Because I could probably drop a few.
Nothing great. Nothing great. Just eating better and just staying away from the things I love the most, which are Mountain Dew. I drink 3 or 4 Mountain Dews during practice, and not trying to eat after 7 o'clock, and potatoes. I love mashed potatoes. Here in East Texas, man, you can get the best chicken fry and barbecues and mashed potatoes and French fries and homemade pies and things like that. They bring cookies up here to the office. And just, things, the sweets and all those things, and just pushing back and saying no. And doing the things I ask my team to do, being disciplined and tough, and not doing what I say, and following my own advice, showing some discipline. And I just think that our team is a reflection of me. And if I'm going to be like that, then our team's going to be sloppy. So I made a commitment to myself to try to get myself in better shape.
You stole a little bit of my next question. I was going to ask you about that challenging out-of-conference schedule last year. You opened the season on the road at Kentucky, which I watched that game up here in Toronto on TV. It was great to see you. But you mentioned some of the challenges of that, maybe a little bit too much too soon. But any part of that experience, think long term maybe that was a good thing for these guys?
No, I thought it was all positive. Except for the one thing, we didn't play with some of the guys that we expected to be playing with. We're missing, 2 or 3 guys that we thought were going to be in the rotation, that weren't, which was good in the long run for us because we got them some great experience, and it's going to help our team this year. And, Ty Charles didn't practice really until February last year, missed, the first 15 games of the year, so to speak. And so, he's out. C.J. Williams, who's a I mean, the kid we thought would start with at the 2 the last day of the summer, becomes ineligible, so he doesn't come in here, and so just different things that the roster we thought and the makeup of our team totally changes. Instead of playing the guys that we thought originally would be 9 through 13, they became 7 through 10, and at different parts of the year, which is good for your team. That's great depth and great depth for our team this year. So, I think that our team 1 through 12 or 1 through 13 this year is extremely deep. And, we're now getting healthy. We've missed a lot going so forth up to this point. And right now, Ty Charles is still out, if you can believe that. Had shoulder surgery in June, and now kind of working his way back in and some non-contact stuff. And so, if we can ever get all of our pieces on the floor, I think our team has a chance to be really special because we're fast. This is maybe the fastest team I've ever coached.
You talked a little bit about, your recruiting and you've got a few new guys coming in that had some options to play at some Power 5 programs, but they chose to come play for you at SFA. What was the message to them during the recruiting process that you think maybe helped sway them to come play for you?
Well, it had zero to do with me, but it had to do with two guys and a lot of players before I ever got here. But Danny Casper and Brad Underwood and those players that played here before me, set the bar so high. I mean, the SFA is the state's winningest program here in our state for the last 10 years and the last 5 years. And so the culture and the habits that are in our program here, I think are really exciting for young people to want to come. I mean, we've led our league in attendance for I don't know how many years. We sold out our building, multiple times, and it's just a great place to play, and our guys get treated so well on our campus. And for this part of the country, in the state of Texas, which is a football state, and I love our football program here, but our guys just get treated like rock stars. So it's not a hard sell. I mean, when you have done things like they've done here, go to the NCAA tournament, and not just go, but, Coach Underwood's programs, they won games. It's easy to say, hey, come to some place where you got a chance to win games in the NCAA tournament. You get to listen to that.
Looking at some of the new guys you're bringing in, the guy that sticks out to me, there's two of them really. Well, Shannon Bogues, I mean, this guy's put up some impressive numbers from three-point range in JUCO, and as well as a guy like Cameron Mack, who, I mean, he's pretty well recruited in the state of Texas. Tell me a little bit about these guys on and off the court and some of the other new guys you brought in.
Well, I think that and there's 3 guards I think that we have that and you mentioned 2 of them. Shannon Bogues is we felt like for us to play the way we want to play as far as continuing the pressure defense and playing 94 feet, we had to improve our speed, athleticism, and quickness, and those 3 kids. Shannon Bogues lost like 5 games in 2 years in junior college, and then scored over 1,000 points. It just has a knack to put the ball in the basket, and he's
So TJ Holyfield, preseason all-conference.
Yeah.
What are you expecting out of him this year?
I think for us to do what other people think that we need to do, I think he's got to be, up there for, have a chance to be player of the year. I mean, he's made a commitment, spends the most time in the gym on our team, and as far as outside of when we ask him to come, he's in there 7 days a week. He's extra time in the weight room, tremendous commitment to the game and understanding the game, and is in great shape, and shooting the ball, and just, he has a chance to be the all-time leading rebounder and shot blocker at SFA if he continues on the pace that he is. And, he's going to have some big numbers scoring to be the all-time scoring leader here. He could do some incredible stuff if he keeps going.
So I asked you this the last time we spoke, and it was a year later. Perceptions change, but can Stephen F. Austin become a national program in the same way that Gonzaga has become that, and perhaps maybe St. Mary's is evolving into it?
Chris, I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's our goal here. I mean, we think big thoughts, and that's what we want to do. I mean, I think we have a great administration. And, that's the foresight, and that's our plan. And I think that I wouldn't have come here if they didn't have the same vision, the same thought that I have. It's going to require an unbelievable amount of commitment, not only by me, and I think the administration is committed to trying to become, those type of programs, which I have great respect for. Coach Bennett gave me some time with him this summer. I spent a lot of time with Randy Bennett. The whole deal is their culture and what their kids believe in, and what they do, and I admire all of them. And to get to that level, you have to recruit better players, and I think our staff has done a great job of doing that. We've got two high-level kids recruited already. One of them's a 4-star kid in our own state, which we're really, really excited about. And so we're continuing to get better kids. Yeah, I think what they've done here, but it's a function of, can we produce like they've done in the past? And we've got to play a better schedule, and we got to put ourselves in an opportunity to play those games to get noticed like those other schools have.
Well, last question, Kyle, and I'm always thankful for your time. Despite some of the teams in the Southland closing the gap on you guys last year, you're once again rated as the favorite to win the conference. What's your goals for your team moving into the start of the season?
Well, our first goal is to win the first game, which is Longwood on the road. We didn't win a road game last year until January, so I know that won't be easy. They played our tails off at home last year, and I got a lot of respect for Coach C at Longwood. He does a great job, but to me, at SFA, I did a terrible job last year making friends, because they always seem to pick the one first who they don't like very much in your league. So I don't have many friends in our league, or they wouldn't have picked us first.
So there you have it. That was my interview with Kyle Keller, the head coach of Stephen F. Austin. Hope you enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking to Kyle. He's one of my favorite coaches, just very down to earth and very forthcoming, and he doesn't hold his cards close to his chest to tell you exactly what he's thinking. So look out for the Lumberjacks. They're going to be on ESPN3 on Wednesday, November 15th, and as well as the 16th, and then as well coming up, they got a big matchup Saturday, December 16th against LSU. That'll be on the SEC network. I always check them out on different live streams and that. I'm one of those guys that goes searching for college basketball. I was watching the Ohio Valley Conference last night, Middle Tennessee and Murray State on the OVC digital network, so I can't get enough of it. But so if you are a big college basketball fan, you'll know where to find their games. Coming up next is one of the more controversial figures in all of college sports, Lane Kiffin. Lane is in his first season as the head coach down at Florida Atlantic University. Not a lot of people knew what to think about Lane going down there. They thought he may have held out for a better job, perhaps in a Power 5 conference. But, speaking to Lane before the season, he seems real happy being down in Boca Raton, Florida, is enjoying the process. And I think he may stick around there for a few years. He's being paid pretty decent. He's got his team 7-3 right now, 6-0 in Conference USA, and he seems to be playing with little swag and still up to his old tricks, trolling Las Vegas on Twitter, where he made his punter go for a safety a couple weeks ago and then went on Twitter and started talking about the point spread because they were 6-point favorites, and then that ended up changing it. That safety changed the game to 4 points, so the whole betting line shifted, and then obviously, Lane came out and said he was joking about that. But I do touch on a little bit about, Twitter and his use of social media, but somewhere in the middle of this interview, Lane's phone started to cut out, so I had to kind of chop about a minute and a half out of it just because there was all this static over him and I talking. So if it seems a little choppy, forgive me, but it's about 7 minutes long, and you give you a good insight to Lane. So, if you're not familiar with him, Lane's been the offensive coordinator for Alabama for the past few years, and at one point was the youngest head coach in the NFL when he was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, then went on to be the head coach at the Tennessee Volunteers very briefly and departed hastily, and then went out to USC, was the head coach there for a few years, and then was famously fired on the tarmac of LAX airport at about 4 a.m. in the morning, which, Lane's one of the, he'll constantly remind you about that on his social media. But he's a great follow. One of the more interesting people I've spoken with, came away with a much different opinion of Lane after this interview. So here it is. Check out my interview. Lane Kiffin, head coach, Florida Atlantic University. You had a lot of options as far as your coaching career. Why was Florida Atlantic the right place for Lane Kiffin?
The leadership here, when I met with different places and met with the leadership here from President Kelly on down, you could see that they really wanted to build a championship program. It wasn't just, we're going to keep doing, obviously there had been a lot of success on the field, and they were committed to doing things to help that change.
You've had a few months on the job and settling in now. You happy with the decision, or is perhaps the enormity of the task maybe settling in?
No, extremely happy. For a lot of reasons. We do have some very, very talented players here. We signed a great class that, a few of them just started this week here in summer school, so we're excited to get them in, and really excited about the area. Both of the people here have been great to us. And obviously a phenomenal place to live.
Can you tell me about what you enjoy and what you get out of Twitter and social media?
Well, I just think seeing the reaction to it just really reminds me that people take things way too serious. You need to relax a little bit and have fun in life. So I know our recruits laugh about some stuff and like it. And when parents or recruits come in here, they like to talk about it or respond to you on different things. And the latest one of our top donors, Abdul Mulberry, I was with his son, his 9th grade son, at a charity event for cancer, scooping ice cream, and he started rattling off all these kind of riddle jokes. I said, "That's pretty good." He's like, "Yeah, nobody follows me on my Twitters. Can I put these on your Twitter and link them to me?" I said, "Sure, go ahead." It became that I'd lost my mind. So, people ask us to just relax a little bit. Life's too short.
A lot of people say you're only as good as your quarterback. Tell me a little bit about your guys and if you've decided on who's going to be the number one yet.
We have not decided. We have some really good quarterbacks here. All three of our scholarship guys did some really good things this spring. The top two, DeAndre Johnson, who just transferred in here, and Driscoll, who was a returning starter last year, both did some things well. Driscoll really had a great command of the offense, was very consistent throughout spring, and DeAndre flashed and made a lot of big plays. So we're excited about the competition in the fall. And Daniel Parr was injured, so he wasn't able to. So we'll have 4 guys in the mix.
I'm sure you've had some time to watch some of the game film from last year of, the players you've inherited. Any particular guys jump out of you on that film that you're like, damn, this kid's a real player that you're excited about?
I think a number of our offensive skilled guys really, flashed. We've got some really good skilled players on offense. Devin Singletary was a freshman last year. I believe had 1,000 yards as a freshman running back. So he's very talented. We discussed the quarterbacks. Buddy Howes is the senior running back. Also had a lot of success last year. So it's a very deep receiver core. So we have a lot of work to do in the lines, offense and defensive lines. But we have a lot of skill to work with.
You put together, a great coaching staff, which, includes your dad and a bunch of other guys. The guy I wanted to ask you about, Clint Trickett. I thought, watching him at Florida State and West Virginia, I thought, hey, this guy, he could be a pro quarterback, but obviously, the concussions and that derailed his career. Tell me a little bit about Clint as a coach and, what kind of guy is he?
We're excited to give him an opportunity. Got to meet him. I actually saw him on TV, on that TV show. He was coaching East Mississippi in the press box. And his brother, believe it or not, was the offensive coordinator here a year ago and moved on. So I met him, and he was at the quarterbacks, East Mississippi, where DeAndre Johnson transferred in from. So had heard a lot of really good things about him. And then he got a chance to GA at Alabama, and when we had an opening come open, we had a chance to call him and give him a full-time job.
Lane, you and I are the same age, and prior to working in sports, I worked in the music industry for 20 years. I was an agent for, many Grammy-winning bands and that, but, after a while, I hit that burnout. I just wondered, you've had some ups and downs over the past few years in your career. Have you ever had kind of like that, F this moment and maybe consider switching careers?
No, not really, or not at all, I should say. Just really kind of always had a passion for this and helping young kids develop as student athletes and graduate our players and, just perform and achieve their dreams, which a lot of them are to the NFL, so we've been very fortunate to, I don't know, somebody said, in a speech the other day or something, they said the president, over 100 players with coach have gone on to the NFL, so just excited to help those guys with those dreams and help them achieve those things.
Aside from football, what else are you passionate about?
My kids. 3 kids. Love spending time with them. And then I really don't do much more than that. A little bit of fishing, which fishing improved a little bit, moving from Alabama to Boca. So fish get a little bit bigger down here.
No doubt, yeah.
So little bit of that, and that's about it.
Which of your incoming guys are you looking to be difference makers on the field this year? I know you mentioned some of the kids that are already there, but you've been busy recruiting. Any 1 or 2 kids that you're really excited about?
Well, defense where we need the most help. As you can see from the statistics last year, a lot of help needed on defense. So a lot of those guys, some of the junior college players, there's a safety, a linebacker, and 2 defensive ends. So we kind of went heavy with some junior college over there to try to help immediately those needs.
You guys 3-9 last year. What's your realistic goals and expectations moving into the season?
Yeah, we don't ever look at things as wins and losses and put numbers on that. There's too many variables, injuries, referees, calls, weather, all those different things. So it's a lot more just about improving our program, improving our individual players so that we can improve as a team. And wherever that takes us, wins and losses, totals, that's where it takes us. But just continue to improve our program every day.
So there you have it. That's my conversation with Lane Kiffin, head coach at Florida Atlantic. Always interesting, never boring. and hopefully get the opportunity to do that again with Lane sometime soon. As I mentioned, that was just before the start of the season for an article I wrote for Hero Sports. I mean, just Google Lane Kiffin, Chris McKee, Hero Sports. You can check out that article from about 2 months back. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. First segment, Kyle Keller, Stephen F. Austin University. Finished that with Lane Kiffin. Don't forget, you can check me out on Twitter at Mr. McKee. That's MRMCKEE. Let me know what you think. Coming up on my next podcast, I had a conversation with former NBAer, Phoenix Suns legend Dan Marley, who's now the head coach down at Grand Canyon University in Phoenix, and he's building the winner. He's one of the favorites in the Western Athletic Conference heading into this season, and it's their first season of NCAA postseason eligibility after transitioning from Division II into D1. So I had a good conversation with Dan, and I also spoke with Reggie Theus, who is also a former NBA legend and is now the head coach at Cal State Northridge, and we had a pretty interesting chat. So don't forget to tune in again. Check out my previous podcast. Just Google Chris McKee Podcast on YouTube. Have a listen. Thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate you guys listening.